Clay? Oh, yeah.
So, Clay, it's kind of funny story, this whole chapbook, how it came to be. My understanding is this is kind of was your creation, or you were the one who came up with the idea of like, hey, I got to talk to you, Andrew? Like, where did this whole incredible combination come up with?
Well, Andrew put me up when I was doing a few poetry readings in Jersey, and we just connected. And when I left, I thought it would be cool to just do a split with them and kind of like make a book about that time together, you know.
Actually, I don't know if this is funny or not, but because Andrew had brought that up to me that you had been going around saying, hey, can anybody put me up? And I said, you know, somebody like me couldn't just do that. Hey, can anybody let me on their couch for a week? So I find that so incredible that you were able to do that. So, I mean, what do you think about that?
Normal life for me, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it too. That there's a certain, gender disparity. A woman going around asking for places to crash. It's like that. We talked about Karen Finley saying like, on the road wouldn't happen for a woman. Be a completely different story. So.
Well.
But I'm saying, Clay, I'm saying, fuck that, I'm doing that now. And that's why I'm in Austin, Texas. And I'm normally from Cleveland, Ohio. So, Clay, where were you originally when you were going out to Jersey for some open mics? Or
Where am I from? Is that what you're saying? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear it. I live in San Francisco right now, but I'm from Modesto, California.
Okay, so total West Coaster.
Yeah.
And then you said, hey, let's do this chapbook. Can you guys talk about how did that, like, did you guys send poems to each other? Like, how did that process, that whole combination? I'm really enthralled by the collaboration.
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry I'm late. I'm having issues with technical difficulties
what happened
here.
One of the great things hanging out with Clay was that we had a lot of sort of this incidental hours. We were sitting around my table, listening to music, talking poetry. We were in the car driving a lot, and I think we were just throwing ideas out. And Tom Waits came on, and he was like, "I fucking hate Tom Waits," and I was like, "I love Tom Waits," and he said, "Like, we should do a chapbook based all on just Tom Waits." And we're going to go back and forth about it. And that was one of the ideas. And it was like one of those things we say, okay, let's do that. And then we checked in with each other. He's like, yeah, let's scrap that idea. I want to go in a different direction. I want to do just like really surrealist poems. It's like, okay, cool, we'll do that. And we did, checked in again. It's like, why don't we just do whatever we want? And it sort of turned out that way.
Yeah.
Which I think it worked well. I think there's a little remnants of each incarnation, or at least idea of the chap in there. Some of the surrealist stuff, some of the Tom Waits stuff, and then it's like, I know for Clay, I'm not going to speak for you, but some of the poems in there are some of the things you were struggling with at the time as well.
Yeah, and I like how you put it to me once before. It's like both of us are just shooting off a bunch of jazz solos, and it's just kind of chaotic but fun and interesting. I read it a couple times all the way through, and it's just a fun read to me. I'm proud of it.
This would be a great time if you guys wanted to, because if you're not familiar, Andrew hosted a little like salon on Monday where these two kind of read each other's work. I don't know, I hate to throw you on the spot, Clay, but I know Andrew would be something that you could do right now, maybe sample one of the pieces from our collection here, just to give the people a little sample of what we're talking about, because it's an incredible collection. I've had the privilege of being able to read it as well.
Thank you. And I see that Steve just joined the chat. And again, I think he was also just incredible putting it together. So I truly, very grateful and an honor to that he worked together with us to do this. You want Clay, is it all right if I read one of your pieces again, or do you want to just read your own?
Whatever. If you want to read one of mine, cool.
Well, why don't we, start off with the what was the impetus for this? It was the Tom Clay's anti-Waits poem, which is the title is, again, it's for Flowers from a Garbage Can, like 2 Key Customs. So the title of this is more like Waits for this ugly song to be over. D-Piece and I almost did this chap on Tom Waits. why the fuck did I entertain that idea? It was my suggestion as well. Tom Waits. More like waiting for the song to be over. I knew a girl. She had Tom Waits' face tattooed on her arm. After we kissed, I read Poe's face and gave him a pat on the head. I tried not to feel Waits staring at me. I wish Iggy would have popped him after the coffee, after that cigarette.
You like that one?
So, actually, I'm going to have you, Clay. Why don't you go right into your choice, and then we'll talk about both of those and why you chose those two. I mean,
okay,
we'll actually,
cool.
you know, why Andrew chose his.
This is Andrew's poem, Flowers from a Garbage Can, the title piece. Bars on window cage, birds' nest being hosed away by sleepless brokers. Bolt cutters sing on. Dumpster chains as a hungry stray picks flowers from a garbage can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, talk about that one. Obviously, that's the title. What about why you chose that one?
Well, I honestly chose it because it's a title poem, and I thought it would just be the easiest one to read right now.
I love it. Hey, there are no wrong answers. Yeah. I love that.
But it really also sets a tone too. Like it just really, I don't know. The idea of flowers in a garbage can is entertaining to me. So
yeah,
bolt cutters singing.
Yeah, well, you're in San Francisco, and for me, walking that poem popped in my head. I was walking around Philly one night, and there was I noticed all the garbage cans, all the dumpsters had they were chained up. Like things have gotten to a point where they don't even want strangers to throw their garbage away in their own can. But it's like that. I'm sure in San Francisco that sort of territorial pissing is everywhere. Where it's for a city, it seems very, very closed. Even though it's supposed to be the home of flower children and such.
Clay, are you blown away by that little touch to San Francisco there?
Yeah. 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 I don't know how to follow that.
That's okay, because I have this to ask you instead. How did you guys know that you had a hit?
A hit?
Yeah. How did you know that this was a complete collaboration? It was totally ready to go. It was balanced and well done. When did you know it was ready?
Well, between Andrew and Steve and I didn't have any doubts that it wasn't going to be good. I knew that it was going to turn out beautiful like Steve always does, and that Andrew was going to come exactly how Andrew does, and he did. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, again, working with Steve and how, his aesthetic is and his editorial input, I had no doubt of that. And Clay, it's just one of the things I only knew Clay originally from his poetry, from being on Between Shadows. That was his first chapter that I read, and I thought that blew me away. And then following him on Instagram, it's okay, and spending time and seeing him at readings and all that. It's the second he offered the idea of doing it, it had to be done. So yeah, I didn't have any sort of doubts or qualms with his quality of work or Steve's. Mine, I'm ready to burn it, but that's okay.
And I knew there was a similar vision and a similar connection. There was a connection between us, and when that happens, and it's rare for me these days with someone, cool art could come from it.
Yeah. And one of the great things, with Clay, we just sat around and bullshitted for a while. And later on, I'll read a poem that was inspired by him. We would also talk about music, and there was a lot of times he would suggest a band, and I would know it, and he was sort of impressed by that. So I think that was, his knowledge of music is much more in depth than mine. But I think it was Algebra Suicide. We talked about Algebra Suicide for a while. It's and that's a band not that many people are into or know. And I'm trying to think. Lydia Tompkins, who was the singer and poet. No, she's not from Cleveland. I think she's from Chicago, or was from Chicago. I don't know if you ever hear. You have to listen to Algebra Suicide. because she does this spoken word thing, but she reads these sort of surrealist poems with this great nasally Chicago type of accent, and it really adds to it. So
it's really minimalist and it's really good. We bonded on it.
Yeah. Hey Andy, when you hear a surrealist poem, because I feel like I'm about to ask this question. Do you have a sense of like what that definition of a surrealist poetry would be like?
You know what's interesting? Okay, no. So I was trying to just listen to everything you guys were saying, and I
talking shit
apologize
about
for
you.
being
That's
late.
all.
Like again, technical difficulty. So I'm just trying to embrace everything you guys are saying. So I got introduced to damn. I guess I missed it. So you know what's funny? I first got introduced to surrealist poetry back in 2020 during the COVID lockdown. And I met a few poets who they said that they touch on, like that's like the topic that they really touch on as far as when they write their pieces. From my understanding, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe surrealist poetry, it's like, I don't know if I'm saying, maybe I'm saying it wrong, but it's like you're describing something but without actually describing it. Like I'm not like there's like a painting, like they always refer to a painting of a guy, but then you see like a green apple in front of his face type of thing. They say that surrealist is inspired by like that's the inspiration from that, but I'm not 100% sure if I'm correct with that. So I'm like, but then I've had other poets that have told me, well, there's such thing as real surrealist, and then the so-called that's not real surrealist thing. So I'll be honest with you when it comes to that, like I
Andy,
have like
I
a
feel you.
50-50
Andy,
understanding, but I don't
I
know
agree
if
with you.
what I
My
understand is
surrealist thing, I'm an
it's
abstract
really what it
person, and I
is.
thought, but like when
If
I
that
asked
makes
the
sense.
forum, what's
I don't know
surrealist
if anything I
poetry,
just,
gentlemen,
yeah.
what's surrealist poetry?
You want to
Don't fight for it.
I think it's the idea of almost as surrealist paintings, the idea of tapping into the unconscious, the idea of letting images sort of roll out. That there doesn't have to be some sort of strict narrative. There doesn't have to be a sort of formality to it. The concept is really just letting the underpinnings of or in underpinnings of your thought just come out. So it doesn't. You don't have to find it. Feel. You don't have to read a cohesiveness, but it's supposed to invoke something that's a little bit deeper that gives you a little bit more to contemplate.
Yeah, I agree. It comes from like a subconscious or unconscious part of the brain,
Mm.
and it kind of just flows out. And also, it like invokes this like ethereal kind. It can evoke this ethereal like tone to it. Also, in
Yeah.
one of my poems, I talk about a shovel like growing a head and digging its own grave or something like that. And that's like a surrealist image. Like,
Right.
and so.
But you
I don't think.
feel it. You can feel
Yeah,
that.
but I will say one thing. I think surrealist poetry is a blanket term, right? I don't think it's like. I don't think that there could be two people who are considered surrealists or whatever, but are totally different. So,
Yeah.
so it's not like it's genre.
And
Like,
there has been. I was going to say there have been surrealist painters who worked in poetry.
Yeah.
I think Dorothea Tanning is one of them who she did poetry. So did Lenore Carrington, even Remedios Varo. So it's interesting how if you look at their poems and you look at their paintings, you can see how again it's very ethereal is a good word for it. Dreamlike. It's sort of the cliched concept of it. But yeah, just imagine taking some sort of apple core and sticking it in your forehead and letting everything out just project. And like what there's sort of no cohesiveness there. It's just like just the random ideas of everything you just coming from all the different hemispheres and areas of your brain, and there's something there. You feel it. It's almost the idea of decoding it. You have to decode it. So it's not something you can read quickly. It's not something. It's not confessional. It's something you read it and you kind of you sit with it for a while.
And sometimes it might not. It's up for many interpretations. Like you could sit with it, and two people might be sitting with it, but then you know, you come to completely different conclusions. And that's another thing that's a part of surrealism is like the ambiguity
Yeah.
of how it can
Yeah.
be.
Exactly. And there's that great surrealist game you can play with poetry called Exquisite Corpse, where you would write. So Angela, you would write 2 or 3 lines, and all I would see is like the last 3 words of the last line, and then I would play off of that, and then you would only see the last 3 words of that, my last line, and then you would play off of that, and then we put it all together. It's like this poem was just sort of flowing off of just small little snippets of each other's poems without knowing the larger context of it. So, and I got
What's that game
to
called
say
again?
exquisite corpse, which is my favorite term.
All right, that's a really. We're learning so much. Like everybody's like, Andy, don't you
I'm
love it
wearing
when we
leather
have
patches on my jacket. That's why.
when we have the intellectual people coming to town? We have to just go the upper brow because we have people talking about Dadaism in our chat here. You know what I mean? Dadaism, y'all, or poetically silent situationism, new descending, and Babbitt's beating, Duchamp, check and mate, Rook, 2 Queen, Sophia, Zeno, consciousness. I mean, come on, Andy, aren't you loving this crowd tonight?
Yeah. Yeah. No, like I said, like when I come here, I always love to listen. I love to like just again, I'm learning right now as we speak. So like I said, 'cause I know there are poets on here that do again they write surrealists, but I've heard so many different ways when it comes to surrealists. I feel like the way you guys just described it makes absolute sense. But because I've had people tell me, oh, there's real surrealists and then there's the fake surrealists. Like, do you know anything about that? If there is, how do you guys feel about
Well, it
that
sounds like
statement? Let's say, for
gatekeeping, doesn't it?
example, I'm curious to know
Well, I
because I've
think
had
fake
people tell me that
surrealism
as well.
is the idea where it feels forced. Like you're trying, it's one of the things that people always would uh, criticize the filmmaker David Lynch with is that he's being purposely obtuse. He's just throwing things out there as opposed to these things, being organic or something that he's actually just manifested in his mind. And if somebody who's a fan of his work, he'll go like, no, you can see that there's sort of this, again, unconsciousness that's going through it. So fake surrealism would be people purposely trying. It's almost like, like in the 90s when there was like fake gangster rap, where the people who were singing it, like their parents were dentists, and they're really trying, and they're throwing all these like the lingo out there and trying to prove how hard they are, and you're like, it just doesn't feel right. This is somebody who got it secondhand, as opposed to somebody who lived it and just putting it out there. So I think fake surrealism, it's not so much gatekeeping, but it's one of those idea of somebody who's trying too hard to be weird for weird's sake.
Absolutely.
Right.
I kin that to like shock.
So it's like it feels
You
forced pretty
utilize
much,
like
is what
really
you're saying.
aggressive things that are like maybe taboo to shock somebody because you're trying to actually make a commentary. That's intelligent, but when you just shock for shock's sake, it's just I hate that so much. So I tend to agree with what you're saying.
Therefore, I will not read my fisting Peppa Pig poem, but thank you.
Oh no! I want to hear a Peppa Pig poem. No, I've got to hear that Peppa Pig poem. But
Does he speak with the English accent now?
My son loves Peppa Pig. No, I mean he's still speech delayed, but like it's something about the English accent that draws his attention. I don't know what it is, but like my son has this thing, like it's something about the English accent that draws
do you
his
make
attention.
tea and
He's like,
scones?
oh, okay, and then he'll kind of like try to imitate it. So yeah. Well, but no. You know what's funny? He doesn't even like sweets, to be honest with you. Again, he's only 4, but he had like I'll try to give him a sweet, and he'll actually push it away. He's I don't want to say he's a weird baby, but he's kind of a weird child. He doesn't like the typical stuff
Where
a
did he
child
get
would
that
like.
from, Andy?
He'll eat wonton soup or bok choy. I'm like, okay, whose child is this? I don't know. I think my wife, because my wife eats weird stuff, but it's like, what's going on here? But yeah, that's how I knew about. You know what's funny? Because Peppa Pig, I didn't even know who it was until like my son found it by accident, kind of thing, on YouTube,
Very
and then
sweet.
it's just like it just became a
Now,
thing. He has
two
a
things.
Peppa Pig
One,
doll and
there's
everything.
actually this really cool claymation cartoony thing from Iceland called Pingu, which is really great. Oh, you know Pingu. Okay, so I don't have to talk anymore. That's like akin to the Peppa Pig. Like, oh my gosh, my children love Peppa Pig and we love Pingu. Oh my God, it's crazy. And then two, you said there was a poem that you had, a piece of writing that you had that was inspired by your collaborator. Why don't we have you go ahead and share that piece that's inspired by Clay? Because if you're just joining us, we are interviewing Andrew, but we have invited Clay Hunt as well because they just recently put this incredible collaborative chapbook out by our friends at 2Key Customs. And they shared a couple pieces, but we're also going to be really getting more into Andrew, who he is, and all that background, even though I'm sure he doesn't want to divulge any information to us. But we're investigating Andrew tonight. So what's this piece you have inspired by Clay?
Well, this is from Controlled Burn, which is on Between Shadows, which is put out by Tom Buckless. I hope I'm saying that right. He will kill me if I don't. But yeah, it's sold out on his site, but I do have copies. If anybody wants to DM me and you share an embarrassing family story, I'll send you one for free. So this is something from inspired by a conversation I was having with Clay. It's called Deep Space Nine for nice. Clay Hunt. Clay tells me, "You're like a Vulcan, calm, collected, and rational." I tell him, "Hummingbirds' wings move so fast it looks like they are standing still. Just like Vulcans, their emotions are so strong they can't risk letting them out. The woman that wanted me to beat her almost ended up in the hospital covered in a galaxy of bruises. She keeps calling, trying to get back together. I sit in my artificial satellite, resisting her gravity, boldly going nowhere near where I've gone before. Afraid if I get pulled in again, I will end up in a different type of brick moon, watching syndicated sci-fi shows in general population."
Wow. You know what's funny? That was okay. See, because Deep Space Nine, the
okay, this is
show
over.
from Star Trek, it was an okay show for me. I mean, I think Next Generation was my favorite.
Not happy. So Next Generation was your show?
I like Next Generation better, but I'm sorry. Yeah, Next Generation. Yeah, Deep Space Nine was okay, sure. But I was a Next Generation guy.
Deep Space Nine is #1 though.
Yeah. But
oh man, we could go off for days.
Like, I don't even want to say this, but Voyager.
No, but I really like that piece a lot.
Voyager.
Oh my god,
I got so much love for Voyager.
I only watched Generation because Next Generation, Picard all the way. We never watched the original, but my dad and I would watch Next Generation, all of them, and then Voyager, and then that was it.
Yeah, those are great.
I mean, nothing beats. But nothing beats the William Shatner one, though. I actually enjoyed that shit too, though. But that's that's just me, honestly. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. I know there was this one episode they did a thing where I think it was Next Generation, I believe, where they did like one of those like oh my god, I'm trying to remember what episode it was where I don't want to say they went back in time, but rather they went to some, I don't know if it was an alternate universe, like I don't remember exactly the episode, and they did like a clip where they showed William Shatner in the episode. I don't know if you know what episode I'm talking about, and then I don't know.
Yeah. They recreated the original series, and put the Deep Space Nine actors in an episode. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Andy, you're proving Clay right.
It's one of the best ones. It's really cool.
Now.
Yeah, I remember that very. Yeah.
I know, Clay.
So Andy,
Clay, maybe you and Angela need to do a split chat on Deep Space Nine or Star Trek.
I'll leave it at that.
I don't really remember or know any of with that. But I will say this: if you're just joining us, we're talking about Star Trek and all of their variations. No, just kidding, everybody. We are talking to Andrew and Clay. They just had this amazing split chat. But Clay, what was your reaction when you first saw this poem inspired by you? What were your thoughts having somebody like, Andrew, I don't want to put you on the spot or make you feel uncomfortable, but we all respect the fuck out of you. Like, we think you're pretty up here as far as level, as far as all that stuff. So when Andrew writes a poem inspired by you and how it comes out, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I was honored. I got the chapbook and he didn't even, he didn't tell me or anything, obviously. And I just was looking through and I saw it and I was like, wow, and it's called Deep Space Nine. And I was just blown away. I feel like it's one of the most powerful poems in that book too. But yeah, I was honored, and it was funny to see the Vulcan thing stick with him,
And we had a conversation of knowing people in our lives like that, not just the Deep Space Nine part, but the other part of somebody that took a little bit too much pleasure in pain.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was honored. And now
I think that was great. It was great when he reached out to us. Excuse me?
Oh, I was like, now.
That's what
Oh no, sorry. We all were doing that. It doesn't matter.
No, it's okay, because I just wanted to connect the fact that this is what I really respect about our community, is that not only are we inspiring our own work, but each other is inspiring creations that connect us to even, because that's pretty fucking cool to have a piece of you that's going to live on in this chapbook from, somebody that you respect in return. Like, that's kind of what Andy and I have been kind of on a mission for this entire year, is we're on the search of these incredible artists, writers, creators, just like the two of you, and we're trying to steal as much knowledge from the two of you as we can so we can continue our work in this. So where did you guys decide to do this? Like, when did you, Andrew, we're going to start with you because you're the guest of honor. Like, when did you start writing?
Oh, I think it's one of those things for me, even before high school, I was always writing stories. And coincidentally enough, or if you're into Alanis Morissette, ironically enough, it was sci-fi. When I was really, really young, I loved, and I still love the Planet of the Apes. So I was obsessed with it, and I would just started writing at an early age. And then going through high school, hitting that teen angst phase, and digging into the whole gothic thing, and getting into even though it's a band I don't listen to anymore, I have to thank them because of The Cure, the song Mad Bird Girl, reference the Dylan Thomas poem, Love in the Asylum. And because of that, I wanted to find out what that was. And so, 15, reading Love in the Asylum by Dylan Thomas, it's completely opened my world to what poetry is and what it could be. So that was probably really, that's when I started to get into it and taking it seriously. Because when you're younger, you write. Everybody has a journal. Everybody starts getting into it. But when you start seeing artists that you enjoy, and I don't know, maybe nowadays a lot of people do get into poetry and writing through music. So that's when you see artists you like, reference writers, and it's like, wow, this is something that it seems mysterious. It seems cult-like. It almost seems like its own special religion that you can be part of. And once you start learning the vernacular and learning whatever sacraments and prayers that poems could be, it's like it really just allows you to just completely change your perspective on who you could be and who you are.
And I was gonna ask, can you describe the moment to me where, when you first decided, okay, I'm gonna take this poetry thing a lot more serious? Can you describe me that exact day and
August
what was
14th,
going through your mind, and when did you decide,
2021,
okay, you know what, let's do this?
1:37
Can you describe that?
No, no, it was like, I'll be honest. I mean, I wrote before. Actually, before I did poetry, I was doing mostly short fiction.
Oh, my God,
and I have a
thank you.
short story, and I have to actually thank him, Thomas Pluck, who is a New Jersey crime writer. He writes really, really great stories. He has Boys from County Hell and Bad Boy Boogie. He has his Jade Devereaux, I believe is the character, like series. I met him on Twitter. I would just like write this ridiculous stuff on Twitter, and he was like, "Okay, you write me a short story. I'll have this anthology, and I'll put you. If it's good, I'll put you in it." So that was it, and I was like, "Okay, it's kind of interesting that all the stuff I would write down myself, and never thought I could publish." I did zines. I think Clay, you're from the punk rock scene. You did zines. You just like you write stuff, you put it out. You didn't even sell it. You just like shoved it underneath the record stores doors and handed it out at shows and shit like that. But yeah, for me, I think a lot of it,
Wow.
I suppressed it for a long time. And then when I was going through my divorce, I was like, you know what? This is something that I should really investigate a little bit more, take seriously, allow myself to explore. It's unfortunately, you sometimes what you are passionate about gets seen as just your little hobby, and it's just like, okay, So it's like, you know what? This is a chance for me to actually let that out and go after it. And for me, I started putting it out there. I have to thank Damian Rucci, who is a poet in New Jersey, who does the whole New Jersey Renaissance. Seeing that he was doing open mics, it's like, you know what? Here's an open mic. I've never read in front of a crowd before, but fuck it. I'm already an ass. Like I can't fall any further, so I'll just go in front and read some of this stuff. And because of that, it's like, yeah, that I found a community, I found an outlet, and so it would have to be about 5-6 years ago that I really decided that this is kind of how I would like to see myself and who I would like to be. I can't say it's who I am, but I know it's who I would like to be.
Wow. Wow. So, I was trying to listen to everything. As I'm listening to everything you said, and that is profound. How an event like helped you. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Like during your divorce, you were doing this poetry thing, and it just really intertwined with each other. I wanted to ask you about, because you had mentioned Twitter. So I'm trying to understand. You were part of a community,
it was
poetry
more
community
like
on
back
Twitter.
in,
Like, is that what the
now
whole
make
thing
me feel
is?
really old. Back in the golden days of Twitter, it really was, you just followed people and you put nonsense on there, and there was this great back and forth with a lot of people. Pre-Trump Twitter was a great place to be, and it really, and you would be able to put things out there, and a lot of times it was sometimes rift. You had 140 characters, so before they expanded a lot of it. So it was like, okay, it was perfect poetry. You had to like say something concise, say something intriguing, say something that was a little provocative, in such a way where you would get sort of interaction. And for me, it was, I just followed writers because I've always been enamored with them. Writers and filmmakers, the core of my sort of. Um, I would say that my personal state, saints would be those. And so I was following them. I placed some stuff on Twitter, and a couple of writers liked what I tweeted. And this one writer, I said Thomas Pluck, thought I was clever enough and wanted to see more.
Wow. Wow, no, that's awesome. And it's interesting because somebody said in the comments, your Twitter was amazing. This is
Oh,
Torn
Thornton, I know her.
Jeeves.
Thank you, Jen.
73 said that. Yeah, I mean, I never really had Twitter like that, but I've heard different stories about Twitter. Like at one point it was interactive, now it's just like a hit and miss. It's interesting. I don't know if we know recently, but recently Instagram added a feature called Threads, apparently, and now when I looked at it, it's like their version of Twitter. I don't know if you guys checked it out, but what
Clay?
are your guys'
I don't have a
opinion on it?
comment.
I think the algorithm still sucks,
I
but
never used
well, I don't know.
Twitter ever.
Me neither. Well, I had to for work one time.
like I know Twitter's now is like I know Twitter today. It seems like it's more popular like in the wrestling community than it is anything else. Because that's where it seems like it's most comments now on it. And I'm just like, I mean, I don't have Twitter, but I've had friends that have Twitter, and there seems like it's more wrestling communities than it is like anything else these days. And I don't know who's to blame for that. For the like, I don't want to say that Twitter is
didn't like
is
Elon Musk buy Twitter?
is
Elon Musk,
you said the golden years of Twitter, but I'm just thinking, is Twitter suck
Let's
now
just
because of
blame him.
Elon Musk?
yeah.
Do we
Always blame a
blame
millionaire.
Elon Musk for
A
that? Like, I
billionaire.
don't know.
But I think, I mean, one, we have to get to
Alright.
wrestling Twitter. Are
Fuck you,
you a
Elon.
wrestling fan, Andy? Okay. Who's your guy? Who's your guy?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's the reason why I know about it. Yeah, I'm a huge wrestling fan. Yeah. See, it's interesting because wrestling's changed a lot. If I could go back in the day, I could go from Macho Man Randy Savage to Ric Flair, and then I could go to like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. But now I can go to like I don't know, see, because wrestling today now there's like this other company called AEW, and my favorite wrestler was Kenny Omega, but then my favorite wrestler is also CM Punk. So I mean, it's
are you into
interesting how the
wrestling?
dynamic of wrestling's changed a lot. So yeah, those are my guys.
But come on, oh, hi.
I was a big UFC MMA fan. Like I was
Okay.
into that. Like,
Oh, you want real
You
violence.
don't know.
You want real violence.
organized. Yeah. GSP, the welterweight champion.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, no.
Ken Shamrock
Saint
the
Pierre
one
was
who
my
preached them
guy
both,
back in
so.
the day, man. Saint
So-
Pierre. Yes. Saint. Yeah. You know what's crazy? When I first saw UFC, I remember when it was Dan Severn, Tank Abbott, like those guys. I'm like, UFC back then was so different. It wasn't as it wasn't as controlled as it is now, because they were pretty much fighting with their freaking fists. Like, they were, and it was a lot of blood, violence. I noticed over time Dana White took over. I noticed it changed dramatically after a while. But I remember real UFC from back in like the 90s. It was crazy back then. Like, a lot of things changed a lot.
That claim to fame. So, Charles Conwell, he actually killed somebody.
Okay, so Olympic boxer, wrestling, UFC. I cannot remember his name. I'm reading a book of incredible poems called Dead Wrestlers Elegies, and the name escapes me right now. But it also makes me think of how Joyce Carol Oates wrote all these poems about boxing. So it's like this idea that there's poetry captures sort of that innate violence of that interaction, and sometimes that's out there. You wouldn't think somebody like Joyce Carol Oates is this spindly little ectomorph, but she had this just this love for boxing, and it's like in UFC and wrestling. You have to. What is it about those matches? What is it about the whole format? There's a great book by Carrie Holloway, I think her name is. It's called Throne, and it's all about the UFC, and it's all about that idea of like violence. It's like this world we live in. As much as we say, it's like nasty, brutish, and short, we really live in a sanitized, very clean world. So like we so we're searching for weird acts of violence.
To me, though, there is so much that this person is putting on the line to train the way they do. It is such a scientific situation that they have to do, and then also to be almost a chess player at the time, to anticipate where your opponent is going to. To me, it's almost like an artistic dance. But again, there is that aggressive, kill or be killed. Are we back to Roman times where we're watching the lions and the gladiators and shit like that? I don't know. Maybe I've bloodlust. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's interesting what Andrew was saying, because I was thinking about how even wrestling, like just like I was saying, UFC changed, so has wrestling. But what's interesting, depending on who you talk to, let's say for example WWE, they, even though in their logo World Wrestling Entertainment, they don't consider themselves pro wrestling. They consider themselves sports entertainment. Anything outside of that is considered pro wrestling. But it's interesting because when it comes to Vince McMahon, per se, like example, he just hates the word wrestling. He hates his history. So if you see, like, I just feel like after a certain time, I feel like I guess I don't want to say the awesomeness, but the thing that I used to enjoy a lot about wrestling, I feel like it's been tarnished because there's sports entertainment, if that makes sense, where there's like the storylines and then like for example, but like a lot of things have been
Right.
stupid. For example, we have a feud now because you spilled hot coffee on my chest, like stupid shit like that. That's how redundant it's become, rather than like when it was like Hulk Hogan days, their storyline was more like, oh, you trying to sleep with my girlfriend type shit. But then it's like, okay, but at least in the ring, they told stories while they're in the ring. Now they're just having a match just to have a match, but there's no storytelling in the ring. Rather than like pro wrestling, anything outside of WWE, it's more like, okay,
Absolutely.
wrestling. Like we'll have a little interview segment here, but it's more wrestling. So like, especially if you go to like the independent wrestling where everything's like in a bingo hall
Right.
in the gym, but the fans are more interactive with it. So it's pretty interesting how, like, depends on what type of wrestling you watch, where you watch it. New York, Pennsylvania, yeah, my bad. Hold on. New York, Philadelphia, and Jersey is very well known for that independent wrestling, and California too.
Let's talk about
Storytelling,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, oh my God,
Andrew.
bro.
Speaking of storytelling,
That's when I first heard of John Moxley.
Nice segue.
And
Okay, I'll read this. This is more of a prose poem. This is from the publication, and no offense to Steve or Tom, that I'm most proud of. It's called Body Horror Vacui. It was actually, I believe you read some of Claire Richardson's poems at one point. So Claire Richardson, this is on her press. Just one of my favorite poets out there now, and in general, I just love her work, and I was so honored when she wanted to work together. So this is something that we did together, and she just does an incredible job. I'll show you the interior. So it's like she took pictures of that, made this incredible transparency. Yeah, and then finished the poem.
incredible.
Yeah, it's it's again, her eye, her vision is just, it blows me away. Again, so this is a storytelling prose poem. It's called Like the Shoreline in the Sea. You didn't even wait for me to say hello before you started screaming, "Take me away from here. I hate the city. I hate the way it eats stars. I need to see the stars." For the first part of the trip, you were a cat in a carrier, coiled into yourself, only lifting your head long enough to take long draws of $100 whiskey out of a child's sippy cup, the only thing of his he kept. The one that was so gnawed and faded that the characters on the side were nothing more than a blurred sunspot and pink wound. As your lungs start to fill with the salt air, you opened up and something that might be confused for a smile crashed across your face. As I pulled up to the sand, you bolted from the car. You couldn't get to the surf quick enough, like it was the last boat home. By the time I caught up with you, you were already half naked, knees apart, welcoming in the tide. You grabbed my hand and pulled me down, pushed it down to your belly and told me, "Don't stop until I create galaxies of shooting stars." And then you turned your eyes to the prisoner's cinema sky. I knew there was another's face in your mind, another's name on your lips, and I felt so cheap and petty when I wanted to tell you shooting stars with just burning rocks falling to the dirt. But as you dug your nails and made half moons into me, I realized it was my hand you were crushing, my fingers you were coating in brine, and I would have to let you keep your little myths and misnomers if I was to keep mine. Thank you.
wow.
I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Yeah, even the camera, it was so impressed he threw himself on the floor.
I'm gonna let you go ahead and go first if you had a comment or a reaction to what we just heard there.
Um, okay, well, Andrew's work is one of those things where, like the surrealist, sometimes you can't just like hear it and make a formulated opinion. Andrew's work, for me, I have to sit down and like think about Andrew and think about why he would say. So it's different.
That's
So,
fair.
but I
That's
will
fair.
say this:
Absolutely.
hearing it is fun. Reading it is even funner. I'll
Can
say
I
that.
say that too, Clay? Because
Thank you.
I'm not an auditory learner. I'm somebody that needs to, like, when you guys were doing the thing on Monday, I was so happy I had the visual in front of me. It's very much, as an intervention specialist, you got to see it to hear it, and then so I understand that completely. But I will say this: as far as the pieces that we've heard so far from you tonight, Andrew, that one was pretty like bam. Like, it's really, I like that aggressiveness that was kind of there towards the middle, seeping through towards the end, and that's, I think, something that you highlight. But I want to hear more of that aggressive side of Andrew. I think that that's there. Andrew, would you? I
Andrew.
mean, Andy, would you agree?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I did want to ask, but I don't know if you already talked about it or not because I came in a little bit later. I wanted to ask you about the book, the title of the book, and I want to talk to you about like the design of the book, like as far as the title, like the front cover, like whose idea was it? But I don't know if you guys talked about it or not, because again, I came in a little bit towards the middle. Yeah, like that whole like who came up with the concept
Well,
with it, and then
the
whose
design is all
idea was
Steve
it? How did it all come about? I think that's
Demiansky,
what I wanted to ask
who runs Two
earlier.
Key Customs. Yeah, he was the one who came up with it, and I think we talked about this when he showed us the cover. It's like it has a
Yeah.
sort of this sort of, you know, quasi Japanese feeling to it. The way the characters look on the cover. Yeah, and Clay suggested the inside picture, which is great. So yeah, he was the one who constructed the cover and the lettering and putting it all together the way he did.
This actually brings me back to a point that I wanted to ask earlier, which I don't know. I think this might actually apply to you too, Clay. You talked
Okay.
about the New Jersey scene as far as the open mic and starting off. I'm not going to say starting off that I'm going to actually jump into this by putting myself out there on the open mic. Talk about that scene. You know, when you said that you first started doing that, what about that scene made it so great?
Hey, you cut out a little bit. Was that question for me?
Well, Andrew can start about that, and Clay, because you came out there because you were trying to do open mics as well.
No, I had shows booked,
Oh,
but I want to hear what Andrew said or is going to say. Yeah.
Oh, what made it so great? As usual, it's the being able to experience other poets, seeing people out there, and it was just to see the diversity of not just, you know, the different individuals, but also the individual talent. You know, there's, you know, as we know, you read a lot of poetry, and there's sort of this spectrum of how people write. You know, we talk about surrealist poems, and there's very straightforward confessional poems, and then there's poems that and this is the ongoing debate about what is poetry. But then there's a lot of poetry that is constructed in a way. And people use the word as a pejorative, but it's artifice. It's supposed to be art. It has to be some level of construction and intent behind it. And it's great going to open mics and you see all of that at once. And you can see an array of people read, and you can say, okay, this person is that type of writer, this person is that type of writer, but to see that it's all vibrant and it's all going on at the same time and it's all accepted in the same place. And again, there's all these memes and people running stuff about like mocking, you know, people tell poems about the moon, or people who are slam poets, or people who are word poets, but it's all there. And again, it's something where it's such a weird and I don't know if the word will get me in trouble. It's a weird literary ghetto, you know, and to have any infighting doesn't make sense. And so to see everybody there and it's like, okay, there's room and space for everybody, and it's also accepting that was incredible to be part of.
Because Clay, I know that you just said that you had shows already out there. I'm currently on the mission to figure out why there aren't as many traveling poets as there are comedians and musicians. Why is that not happening? And I don't perform in my hometown. I'll perform out of town. I've been in Nashville a few times, but open mics, nothing. I'm just starting out. I'm horrible. But Clay, how did you said that you had shows out there. How did you develop that whole traveling poetic literary style?
Oh, well, it was more of me wanting to connect to the people that have been publishing me and reading me and stuff in New Jersey. You know, I developed a relationship through Instagram with Steve and Andrew and Tom and a bunch of, Cord and Moreski and Scott Ladati and, and these people, I just wanted to meet a lot of them, and I got to, and so they put me up, and I wanted to be a part of that scene for a sec. I wanted to see what it was all about with my own eyes.
And how did it turn out?
Great. I had a great experience.
Better than expected, or as expected?
As expected. I was expecting for it to come hard and people to be nice, and it was great. Loved it.
Do you think the Jersey friends can now bridge the gap and come visit you in San Francisco?
One of them already has. Scott Ladowdy was here the other day, or a few weeks ago, or a month ago, or however long ago it was, and we got to connect and say what's up. I think, yeah. Anyway. Yep.
All right, that's what Andy and I, my co-host down there in the corner, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build the bridge. And if you're just joining us, or if you've been with us the entire time, we've been interviewing Andrew here. He has been our man of the hour, but Clay has been so kind as to join us because they had just blasted out this incredible chapbook that is available at Two Keys Customs from another one of our friends here. And we are actually talking about building the bridge. We are actually going to be having our open mic portion. We host that now with Origin of Thought, and Andy's going to be joining as the co-host on that starting in about 5 minutes, but we don't want to end just yet because, Andrew, this has been an incredible hour. I mean, we talked about so many things. We defined what surrealistic poetry is, which also includes it's undefinable, which means anything that is surrealist. One surrealist is not the same, and it's still surreal. We talked about Deep Space Nine versus Next Generation versus Voyager versus all the incredible Star Trek franchises. And we talked about wrestling and UFC and all that. But we really are here highlighting what a creative mind
talked about wrestling, UFC,
to build those bridges and develop those relationships, which is Clay, you've been doing that your entire time. So thank you for not just doing the thing while we're just trying to figure it all out. But Andrew, I know you got another incredible piece for us before we end our part one with you tonight.
Okay. This one, again, it goes back to Claire Richardson, and I would like to read it because it's about my sister, and her birthday is actually this Sunday. So yeah, it was a broadside that Claire Richardson put out. Again, it's one of the first things I wrote. One of the first things I wrote when I was getting back into poetry, and it came about. I went to a friends meeting. The Quakers. I don't know if you've ever been around Quakers. They have this thing where they want you to ruminate about something. So they ask everybody to sit quietly and think of something about you love or loved. And so this is what came up. Again, it's like Claire Richardson put it on a broadside. It's called Running with the Devil. I loved my sister. She's not dead, just gone. The woman I once loved has been replaced by someone whose life has forced to be pinched and closed. But I remember when she was wide open like the night highway. I loved the way she would get ready to go out for the evening. Always had to put on Van Halen's Running with the Devil when she prepped. With one match, she would ignite some incense, light her parliament, and then melt the tip of her eyeliner pencil. She taught me all good rituals involve fire and music and probably the devil. That woman is gone. Now the only witchcraft she employs is making coffee as bitter as her politics. But I remember the person I once loved every time she laughs. Her current incarnation has the old cackle. What I love is the idea that people change. Even if they morph into something we no longer recognize, we see they changed once so they can change again. I love that there isn't an imago, just complete transformation. And at any moment, people can change again and again, and again, begin again. So.
Wow. Wow. I was in
no. Just keep talking.
That's deep. Oh, okay. And I guess no. Okay, no. So is the whole change thing? I think is what really got me because I feel like once my father passed away, my mom changed. Not just her appearance, but her personality changed. And it's like you see another side. I saw another side of her that I didn't think existed. It's not that it's bad. It's just like I'm surprised to have known this other side of my mom because she was always submissive to my father. She was always the loyalty to my father. She was always the type that even when he was, the 1950s, my father's the man, my mom's the housewife, and guy's the king of the castle bullshit. And then it's like she had to wear skirts all the time, long skirts and all this other stuff. And it just seemed like once my dad passed away and a lot of those things changed, personalities changed with it. And then also it's like, I'm like, like she started wearing pants now. And then like, Ma, I never seen you in pants. And she would say, oh yeah, your dad never let me wear pants. And it's like before she used to get mad if I said, oh, you just wear that because dad doesn't let you. Like I used to say stuff like that, but for her to openly admit that now, I'm just like, do I say, see, I was right, or do I just shut up and be like, oh yeah, that's
mom.
Interesting. So I don't know. That's what it took me to when.
So what do you think of your new mom?
Change is a very interesting. Wait, what happened? I'll be honest with you. Like, I feel like the essence of what made her my mom is not there anymore, if that makes sense. And I feel like the person I see, I don't know who this person is. That's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, I still love my mom no matter what, but it's like, this is not the mom I remember. And I have to accept the fact that, she's probably never going to come back. And like, it is what it is now. So I help her the best that I can, even though I have my own life over here in Jersey. But
yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting how a situation or an event could change a person. I was also thinking about like a conversation we had when we were going live about the whole rape thing. And it's interesting. One thing that I always thought about was change. A situation would change a perception of a man or a woman or whatever the case is. Like the perception changes based on the event. And then there's the trust issue that develops. There's the whole, like my wife, for example, like she was used to men being cheaters. So she thought all men were the same. And it took me 1.5 years for me to earn my wife's trust during the time that we were dating. I'm like, yeah, but I've known you for 10 years. Like, it's me. I'm Andy. She's like, and I had to come to a realization. This is where change came to my life, where I had to accept the fact that, okay, she knows the friendship me, not the boyfriend me. There's difference. There's a trust. There's a balance. There's a boundary now. It's different because this is a whole nother level of friendship that that I never dealt with before. And she's and she's 5 years older than I am. So that's another thing I had to understand. Okay, but her mentality is different. I'm 38. She's 40. I'm going to be 38. She's 45. It's like, actually, I think she's 7 years. I'm sorry. But like the gap of the age is so different. The mentalities are different. And I had to accept the fact that I have to change my perception of people when it comes to that, because just because I think she understands doesn't mean she's going to understand it the way I understand it, and vice versa. So I had to adjust and realign myself where it makes sense between me and her. But yeah, it took me 1.5 years for me to really earn her trust. So it's like the change and acceptance, because that's something I struggle with, is acceptance. And it's like, you know what, like, all right,
Yeah.
what's the change in the acceptance? Well, it's
Right.
humbling myself that, you know what, I'm not gonna have it my
I
way.
know
It's not
Angela's
about
going
me.
through a
It's
lot of
about
changes
making this
now as
relationship
well.
work.
So how
So
changes
that's
and
what the change was
transformation
for
for
me.
you?
But it's
How
interesting
does
though
how,
how
I live in denial, so I'm just trying to get through it. But I'm working on it.
that's my favorite town in Egypt.
I know.
I'm sorry.
my mom was yeah, my mom was the same way. The first couple of months my dad passed away, she was in denial. Like she was like, "Oh no, your father went
Right.
somewhere," or whatever the case was. Because even though he's been gone for 5 years, it doesn't feel like he passed
Right.
away. Because every time we did used to be around him, he was always isolated in his own bedroom because that's just how he was. So it's weird how
That
the
absence was
difference
already there.
is he's not around physically
So
anymore,
Yeah.
but it feels like
may
he's
I read
still
one more
around. So
piece?
it's
It kind of
weird.
Yes,
I don't know.
absolutely.
it
And
counts.
then we're gonna move over.
Okay. So
So I want to.
this is actually I did a song with uh, the performers Kid Saw Cat. If you ever check on Instagram, that's their handle. And we're on Bandcamp, and this is a song called "Kiss of Theseus," which is a playoff of I don't know if everybody knows the paradox of Ship of Theseus, which is the idea that there's Theseus's ship, and every year he has to replace a plank and a board and an oar and a fitting. And at one point, when does it stop being the original ship? Or is it always the same ship because it's still Theseus' ship? So this one is called Kiss of Theseus.
Mm.
Um, Dirk, who's Kid Saw Cat, his editing of this is much better than my poem. So look that up on Bandcamp. But it's starts off, what is shed, what remains, what is shed, what remains. There was always something missing, something that would never let you feel right. Even with that chasm, you claim that our connection, our essence, felt like we fit. It was never, I was never one for the metaphysics and would talk of the materialism, the corporeal. You hated the idea of being the sum of your parts, reduced to mere meat. What is ruin? What is wreckage? What is ruin? What is wreckage? Our flesh made it easy to ignore the spirit, believing our bodies kept us bound. Conjoined twins sharing a terra incognita of skin that we can never breach. But I was replacing your emptiness with mine, mistaking silence as a shared language, not seeing the joke as you laughed when I said, we're almost the same person. What is growth? What is change? What is growth? What is just change? You were becoming a different person I didn't know when I lost you. You reminded me I never had you. A person can't possess another person. A person barely possesses themselves. You were splitting hairs. Your semantics, a razor cleaving and cutting, removing dead wood. What is shed? What remains? What is shed? What remains? The years in between were lost at sea, among waves and rocks, confusing manatees for mermaids, siren songs for lullabies. Nothing was what it seemed. My blonde spot was missing you. And our shared void, how could so much be built on what was lacking? What is ruin? What is a remain? What is a ruin? What is remain? My loneliness took me to old haunts, whispering your name to raise the dead. Then that guy came over, as if I summoned him, saying he had a message from you. As his lips pressed against mine, his meat digging into my thigh, it wasn't a surprise. The essence transcended the flesh. The emptiness filled what we found what was missing. What is growth? What is change? What is growth? What is change? So,
Bro, we was just talking about change, and that's exactly what it is. What you just
Andy, I
said,
feel like how you
everything. That's
normally
exactly
are.
how I feel.
I can't
Like,
even say any
wow.
words right now. I can't even write no more.
Oh,
Damn.
thank you.
A person barely possesses themselves. Absolutely. That, that's incredible. Yeah.
wow. So, yeah. Damn, we gotta let that sink in for a bit, and then yeah, we have to start ending this now. But I guess my question is like, do you have any last words
Just
before we go over
words
to
of
Orange
gratitude.
and
I want to thank
Fall
you both for
and
inviting me
do the
on. It's an honor.
open
I do
mic
appreciate
portion of
it. I
it?
said, I know as poets and writers, we all have a strong ego, but I don't take any of this for granted. Anybody who says that they enjoy your work, anybody who wants to spend time, valuable time, talking with you, putting out your work, anything like that, it's always something that I take seriously and very dearly because it isn't something that is easily given away and something that we should never just take for granted. And I appreciate it. So thank you both for having me on.